Hello and welcome to the Aromatic Mystery School. I'm Elizabeth Ashley, and today I am joined by the author of a beautiful book called The Personalised Consultation in Aromatherapy, a Practitioner's Guide. And the author is Annie Prince. It's so lovely to see you, Annie.
Lovely to see you, Elizabeth. I've looked at loads of your interviews with people when you did that big aromatic online conference, and you're always so lovely when you interview. You're so good at putting people at ease.
Oh, that's a really nice thing to say. So I always say, when they say to people in work interviews, when you're going for a job, and they say, what if we asked one of your former colleagues what they think about you, what do you think they'd say? And I always say, oh, I know what they say. They'd say, Liz is lovely till you get to know her.
Well, I've also got to know you, and I must mention this, through your Tongue of the Trees cards.
I know, I've seen that you love them, and I love the fact that you use them at really special times in your family, don't you?
We use them particularly at Matariki, which is the Maori New Year. And it's when the seven sisters rise in the sky. It's called, is it Pleiades? I don't quite know how you say it. Yeah. And I actually prefer that festival to Christmas, to be honest. I think it's really meaningful because you think about every aspect of your life, from, the food that we grow and eat, and the water, and our contact with our families, and we tune into the ancestors. There's just a lovely ritual about it, and I've developed this ritual with the family, and we always have a really nice meal, and then afterwards, and we go through Matariki and what the significance of the different stars, and then we all pick a card. Well, honest to God, every time we pick one of your cards, they are absolutely spot on. I
don't
shouldn't be
mind saying,
amazed.
I find them very freaky. I do find them very freaky.
Yes. And my grown-up children, they love them. They just love them. It's really a special part of that ceremony. So I thought I must mention that to you because some of the listeners may not be aware of them, but it's really funny how at that particular time they are so poignant for all of us.
So what's interesting actually is when I was doing the work with the Melisai, because they're channeled from the bee priestesses, the Melisai, I kept coming across these links with the rising of the Pleiades and these rituals with the rising of the Pleiades. And while I couldn't actually pinpoint the actual sort of to say, oh, here is the proof that they were descended from the Pleiades, that's my feelings about it, that they do have that kind of connection to them. So it's very interesting that you have found like a ritual that you want to put them in. And I don't know if you know the story. I'll say it very, very briefly because this is your interview, not mine. But when I was writing them, so they are my cards, but they really belong to Gegle Helodi, yes, who's a Hungarian aromatherapist, and he did them first of all in Hungarian. And they're very popular with people who are kinesiologists, for example. So they can just pull a card, not have to know that much information about the oil, but they will know that this person probably needs the vibration of this oil. And he'd said to me, after we'd done the conference you're talking about, the Beyond the Essential Recipe Summit, I want you to translate these into English. And I very sort of went, oh, okay, I'll do that. So he translated them into English, but I looked at them and I was like, Gegle, these have just been translated backwards and forwards so many times. They just don't work. And they were never intended to be poems at all. But every time I sat down with them, a poem came through. Now, I'm not a poet. And I will say to you now, some plants are poets, but some definitely are not. Some of them are just like, I love that one. They don't, or some don't work. But they weren't coming through that well, really. And then one day, the internet went down, which is just like, oh, you've taken my arm away, really, to take the internet away. And we were without it for a week, and they just downloaded. I couldn't get them onto paper fast enough, really. And so they're very, very strange things. And I must admit, every time I pull one, I think, oh, that's too freaky. I don't like it. they are very interesting things. So thank you for bringing them up and for saying about them in your festivals. So
Yes, no.
we should fill in a gap for people that you live in New Zealand.
Yes, I live in New Zealand. I've been a bit of a global gypsy. But I definitely have a Celtic soul. I was born in Ireland and brought up in England from the age of 6. But we used to go back to the west of Ireland for 6 weeks every summer to my mother's family. And then I went back to university to Dublin. So I always kept that connection. But then when I got married, I was a teacher for several years. And we spent 3 years in the Bahamas, which sounds exotic, but it's not as great as you think. And then I've been in New Zealand for about over 40 years now. And I also lived in France and Spain for a while. So I do feel like I'm a bit of a global gypsy, but definitely with that Celtic soul. Like one of my great inspirational authors is John O'Donoghue. And I remember I found him in the 90s when I thought, I don't know what I believe anymore. Like, religion no longer just sat well with me. And the first book I read was Anam Cara, and I'd read his other Blessings books and everything now. And I just thought, oh my God, I've come home. That's what I believe, because he was a Catholic priest. He did leave the priesthood, but he was a theologian and a philosopher as well, and I think he found God, or whatever you want to call that, higher power, whatever, in nature and through people. And I thought, well, actually, that's good because that's where I'm at, And so how do we get on to John O'Donoghue? I do tend to ramble a bit, Elizabeth.
No.
You might have to rein me in.
Well, I think this is absolutely at the core of your book, about the individual spirit of a person and the nature of things. So I understand entirely how you got there. So talk a little bit about a bit more about Donoghue, because I think it really has it's reflected right through your book, I think.
Yes, it is. I mean, I do quote lots of different people because I love beautiful words. I mean, as I was saying before, I've always been a bit of a wordsmith because even as a young child, I had a book where I would copy quotations and lovely poems and, from quite a young age, and then studying languages. Like I've always loved language. I'm not a fan of very wordy, long academic language, I must admit. I tend to write quite succinctly, But anyway, I do quote John O'Donoghue because I think his words are so beautiful. And to me, beauty is healing and it's uplifting. Like I'll give you an example if I can find it. Well, I talk a lot about like creating a sacred space when people come. And, it's very important for me that people feel safe. And I try to do that by creating a beautiful space, a welcoming space, and by being kind, because I think kindness builds trust. And listen to what he says about kindness. He says, kindness has gracious eyes. It suggests that your vulnerability, though somehow exposed, is not taken advantage of. Rather, it has become an occasion for dignity and empathy. Well, I couldn't put that better. I mean, I think that's beautiful. Kindness has gracious eyes,
It is really beautiful. And I have to say, I was just saying to Annie before we came on, I do have Annie's book, but I haven't read it all the way through because when I got it, I thought, well, I do want to read this because I do know who Annie is and I know that she's very good at her job. I actually think there's not much been said that about consultation in aromatherapy. So, but I was expecting it to be very dry, but I can't get all the way through it because I keep going back and going, oh, I just love how she said that. I just love that quotation she's picked. Oh, isn't that beautiful? And so this my favorite of the quotes that I've come across, which, and I say there's loads of beautiful quotes. You must have spent ages, and this really that gives space to that. You saying that you've been copying them all your life. That comes across in the book. But my favourite one that I've come across was from Professor Bernard Lawn, and he says,
Oh, yes,
"I think
yes.
this is lovely." So, I'll say the quote, and then you can talk a little bit about who he was, because I think that that's a fascinating, like almost like a contradiction in the way that he speaks. You don't expect that's who he is. So he said, "The essence of medicine is addressing a human being. A human being is more than a heart, a lung, an organ that is dysfunctional. A human being is a mind, a soul, and a presence." Sorry, I'm with cough. So,
I
can
know.
what can you say about him?
I can tell you, he wrote this amazing book called The Lost Art of Healing. Don't know if you can see that.
You can.
And he was an extraordinary man. He lived to be 99, and
Wow.
he was a pioneer in cardiology. He invented the defibrillator, and he was also a Nobel laureate. He and some other doctors, I think they set up an organization for the decommissioning of nuclear weapons, you know.
Wow.
So he was an amazing man. But before he did anything, his book is so readable and it's full of case stories, you know. And before he did anything, he would sit down and he would listen to the patient's story and he would try to find out what was agitating their mind. And I love that phrase because we all have things that agitate our minds, you know. And he also regarded talk as one of the best, but I nearly said weapon, that's not the right word, one of the best assets of the physician's armamentarium, talk and listening, you know. And so there are three doctors actually that have really inspired me. One is Dr. He's a New Zealander, Dr. Robin Youngson, who wrote Time to Care. He was an anaesthetist, and I love his statement when he says, the most powerful thing to elicit the healing response is our compassionate caring. I'm going to say that again. Our compassionate caring is the most powerful thing to elicit the healing response. And when you think about that, that gives any therapist or doctor a lot of power, if you like, the ability to elicit the healing response by simply listening to people, talking to them, validating them, you know, and being kind. You know, he also says that if we bring busyness into the relationship, we shut out caring and compassion. Because if we're busy rushing around doing this, like I've experienced it myself, you feel like you're not really being valued, that they don't want you there. You know what I mean? So these are all very simple measures, really. But I think that, you know, like I said before, I think those threads of connection in our wonderful modality are becoming a little frayed, with an emphasis on digital record keeping and wanting to prove everything scientifically. In my opinion, there are things that cannot be proven in a reductionist manner. And it's that sort of almost magical connection between the therapist client, the bespoke essential oils, and the caring touch that we give. And each of those is so complex that you cannot, like, the sacred doesn't fit in a petri dish. And
No,
that's really,
I completely agree with you. Well, I mean, you're preaching to the choir, really, from my point of view, because I just think the further we get from, it's a conundrum, because I do believe that we need scientific evidence. We absolutely need it.
absolutely.
We need
Yeah.
excellent record keeping. We need care,
Yes.
like care and safety, all of those things. But as you quite rightly say, the more we look that way, the further we go from actually that connection, that spiritual connection between two people that says, I really care about what happens to you. And
Yeah.
I want to put everything else out of my mind and just give you presence. I think I read something the other day that somebody had written about shamanism, and they were talking about how they will be witness to somebody's shamanic journey, and that the shaman needs to have ultimate presence with that person for the 3 hours of their journey, and to concentrate entirely on that person for 3 hours. And my first thought was, I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that. But I think 10 years ago I could have done. I think that now, because we are so busy and we work so quick, our mind is occupied in so many different ways, that it's becoming a lost skill. And I think that that became my new ambition, actually, to be able to think, right, how long can I actually concentrate just on one person, to be entirely present on them, and work towards that, because I think it is a lost art.
Well, yeah, a couple of things there. Like I think for me, aromatherapy is an art and a science, and I've always taught both. But I think the emphasis on the science, we are losing the art, like you said, to a degree, not entirely. Um, but I spend 2 to 3 hours with clients. I mean, that's just how I choose to work and how I'm happy working. And I tell you what, I'm tired at the end of it, because by the time you really listen to somebody, and I don't give them forms to fill in, I fill in the form with old-fashioned pen and paper. And so I'm engaged in the conversation, and you're really concentrating, and listening, as Myrta says, with every fiber of your being. And then you have to think about the oils and choose the bespoke oils. And then you give, I'm talking about the full massage treatment now. And so, at the end of anywhere from 2 to 3 hours, I'm empty, I'm tired, but I am extremely fulfilled. And I know that the feedback that I get from people, they honestly, the conversation means so much to them, to be listened to. Because one of the things that I do talk about in the book is the epidemic of loneliness. Like, that opened my eyes when I was researching the book. Some countries have actually appointed ministers for loneliness. I was, oh my God. And then there's two books, which, if I can find them here, because, some of the listeners might be interested. Dr. Vivek Murthy, he was a former Surgeon General of the United States, and he calls loneliness the great masquerader that weaves its way through violence, anxiety, addiction, depression. And he wrote a book called Together, The Healing Power of Human Connection in a Sometimes Lonely World. And it's really thought-provoking. And then Harvard professor Robert Putnam, he documented the decline of the collective structure and community involvement, leading to social isolation and the shutting of ourselves away in our homes. And his book is called Bowling Alone, The Collapse and Revival of American Community. Like, I think loneliness is such a serious issue, and we know that it's as detrimental as obesity and smoking. And so, to bring it back to the therapeutic encounter, we have this amazing ability as therapists to redress that to an extent, to really listen to people, to give them time, to make them feel safe and cared for, and to help them to reveal themselves in their totality. And quite frankly, I think It's hard to find that these days, because I'm very sympathetic in the health system. It's so busy and people are run off their feet. But it doesn't take away from the fact that we need to reclaim conversation with one another. There's another book. You think, Jesus, she's full of these books. I am a great reader as well. But Reclaiming Conversation is by Sherry Turkle. And I found that really enlightening as well. And she's researched the effect of technology over 30 years. Now, nobody is anti-technology. Like, we wouldn't be having this conversation. And she certainly isn't anti-technology. Technology can be phenomenal. But what she found was that even a silent phone or a silent screen can disconnect us. But worryingly, she found that there was a 40% decline in empathy in students through the onset, since the onset of technology. And so many of them were terrified of face-to-face conversation or talking on a phone. They felt too vulnerable. They didn't quite know how to go about it, and they felt much more at ease with texting, email, and online platforms. And, that's the society that we're building. And I know technology will always be here. And there's a lot of good about technology. There's also a lot of very frightening stuff, particularly for young people. But I just think we need to, I don't know, we need to reclaim conversation.
I agree. And I was talking to Michelle Rocco Nina about this the other day. The phenomena that I find is really concerning is the idea that we now like have to text someone to say, are you free to talk at any time? Perhaps we could have a catch up in like 3 weeks' time. Well, in 3 weeks' time, so it can be way too long for somebody. We just don't feel confident picking up the phone to anybody these days. It's been made to feel like, yes, but you've gone too far into my personal space to do that. But waiting
Yes.
3 weeks for somebody to speak to, that can be way too long for somebody. I find it really troubling, this trend that you can't just pick up the phone and say, I just wanted to say hi.
Yes. And the thing is, like, connection with others, we know is a basic human need. And, as O'Donoghue says, something within us cries out to belong. And when we're cut off from others, we atrophy. And the biologist, E.O. Wilson, he believed that people had to belong to a tribe. And yet we have dismantled our tribes, leaving us, as Johann Hari says, alone on a savannah we do not understand, puzzled by our own sadness. And that's another amazing book, Lost Connections by Johann Hari. An absolutely fascinating book about how we live our lives, And, if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, love and belonging and the desire for connection and belonging to a group, along with food, water, and safety, are our most basic needs for a fulfilling life, And there's a Harvard study in happiness, which has been going on for 80 years. I don't know if you've heard of it, and it's ongoing, it's still going. And what they have found is that the greatest predictor of happiness is the quality of our relationships.
Mm.
And just going back to some of the doctors that have inspired me, because I believe in acknowledging people that have taught us or inspired us. There's another wonderful doctor called Dr. Abraham Verghese. I hope that's how you pronounce his name. He's a professor at Stanford Medical School, and you'll find him on YouTube. He's amazing. And he and his researchers, they put out 5 evidence-based practice for deepening the therapeutic relationship. And if I can just find them, you'll find them online, not a problem. Oh, here they are. Prepare with intention, listen intently and completely, agree on what matters most, connect with the patient's story, and explore emotional cues. And he goes into a little bit more detail about them. That's just a summary. But he talks about having a ritual before we, meet a client or a patient. I was so touched by his ritual. Before he engages with the patient, he washes his hands and he reminds himself that he is about to enter a sacred space to listen to the stranger who has come to tell his story. I mean, that could make me weep, Elizabeth.
Yeah,
I think, yeah, thank God you're
beautiful.
teaching those students.
Isn't that lovely?
He's a professor at Stanford, and he tells his students that just as important as any of the medical developments is the relationship, the doctor-patient relationship. And he actually uses the sanctity of that relationship. And that's really the crux of my book. It's honoring that sanctity. And I'm so passionate about it. I really am. I'm so passionate about not giving people forms to fill in, isolating them in a corner, and instead of engaging with them. Because one of the things that Sherry Turkle says is that face-to-face conversation is the most human and humanizing thing that we can do. It's where we develop self-reflection, empathy, it's where we can monitor body language, which can tell us so much. So, a lot of people might say, well, it's all right for you. You've got plenty of time. If we work in our own practices, we choose how we want to work. I'm not talking about people in healthcare situations that are limited in time and space. They don't have the luxury of 2 or 3 hours like I do. But as Dr. Verghese says, you can still put your phone away in your iPad, and even if it's only 5 minutes, you can still be fully focused and interact with that patient. And to me, that is the sacred space that we create. It is that human connection. So yeah, there's a lot of different themes in the book, really. Like, yeah, there is. Anyway. And
What
I
made
talk
you want
about
to write this book? What made you want to write this book? Did you decide I want to write a book? What shall I write it about? Or was it the passion for the subject that drove you? Or even did you feel like people don't know how to do a consultation, or there's a lack somewhere in the way that we teach about consultation? I thought it was such an
well,
interesting subject that you'd chosen.
yes. Well, I've always thought that, and I say this in all humility, but I've always thought that I do the consultation well, simply because the way I've chosen to go about it. And that was born out of my own experience over the years. In any healthcare situation, I've always been given a form to fill in. And all it made me feel was that really disconnected from this stranger that I was, going to entrust an aspect of my well-being to. So I vowed as a therapist that I would never do that. And that was a definite choice. And when I was teaching the diploma, the students weren't allowed to hand out forms. Yes, they had a client intake form, but they had to engage in a conversation and they had to fill it in. But about writing the book, it was actually Rhiannon that said to me, Rhiannon Lewis, who said to me one day, I think you've got a book in you. And I thought, oh, okay. And she felt that no one had really, because she sort of knows how I work. And she felt that no one had specifically addressed in aromatherapy the therapeutic relationship. And so when I thought about it, I thought, yeah, and I've actually got the information because I'm an avid reader, and also preparing like the lessons for the diploma over the years. I had a lot of the material there that I could use. But I thought, no, if it's a contribution to the literature in aromatherapy, then it's a privilege to do it. It's an honor. And I just hope that whoever can benefit from the book will find the book, because there is quite a bit in it. And the second part Like, it's all about bloody numbers, isn't it? When you're writing, the word count when you're writing books.
Yes.
And when I've written what I want to say, I don't want to blather on, you know.
I've got
So
to take it
anyway,
all down now. Which 2/3 of this am I going to throw away? I wouldn't throw any of it away.
I'd said what I wanted to say, but it wasn't long enough. So then I thought, well, why don't I write an appendix? Because a comprehensive one about what exactly is aromatherapy, what are essential oils, what's this, this discussion about the functional group therapy, whatever it is, functional group. I can't remember. What's the third
Chemistry.
word?
But chemistry.
Chemistry. That's, you see, the cold has gone to my head. It's mush now. But
You
anyway,
very rightly shoved it out of your head.
yes. And then I thought I could put in 3 of my practices, like for the head, the hands, and the feet, for people who don't want to be trained in full body massage, but they want to incorporate touch with the essential oils because we know how magical, beneficial that is. So I share a lot of my own IP in that as well as my case history form, and and various other things. Um, but what was I going to say? Yeah, so there's sort of 2 parts to the book, but initially the prompt came from Rhiannon, but I was really happy to write about because I am really deeply passionate about the subject. I
Well,
really am.
I think something that you said, that you think the book will find people when they need it. I absolutely agree with that. And I think that the title is very precise, that it is a practitioner's guide. But to be honest, I think that it's a lesson in being human. I think anybody who is engaging with people on an everyday basis in a therapeutic manner or otherwise should read it. It really is a lesson in just you need to stop and listen to people. And it's a very simple lesson, but it's hard to do.
Yes, yeah, no, I don't think it's just for aromatherapist. I think as you say, in modern life, like with our families, with our friends, do we engage in conversation enough? And why should we, and what's happening in modern life that would encourage us to do that, Um, but yeah, so it's not a very big book. It's very easy to read, but there is a lot in it, I think, And I love that story about Abby Jean. You probably haven't reached that part yet.
Tell me.
Um, it's in Dr. Daniel Penuel. He wrote this book called, or something about home healthcare. I think it may be out of print now. But anyway, the introduction is written by this girl called Abby Jean, who was one of his patients. And she was born in Auckland, but the first 7 years of her life, she had chronic bronchial respiratory issues really, really badly. And she'd had 30 rounds of antibiotics, which just hadn't changed her state of ill health. So her family moved to Adelaide in the hope that a warmer climate would help. And anyway, she got another infection in the maxillary sinuses, went to the specialist, and he said, all right, another course of antibiotics. If nothing helps, we need to get in there, break open the sinuses, flush everything, and they go, oh my God, like she's 7. So, as luck would have it, Dr. Penuel was on sabbatical in Australia. And so, in desperation, they went to see him. So, he sat down and made a plan of action with the family. She had intensive aromatic treatment, like she had manual drainage and reflexology with him. She had directional mist with essential oils in his office and all through the night. And the parents would, massage. And anyway, it was intensive aromatic treatment. And she also, I think, took some of the oils internally, under his guidance. Anyway, she went back after 2 weeks for the x-ray and the infection had cleared. And every time I say that, now I've just got a shiver up my spine. Before I teach, any class, I say, I just want to tell you a story about a little girl called Abby Jean. And then I say, that's what aromatherapy is about. It's not
That's what
airy
you're
fairy.
capable of. Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what it can do on a physical level. And she wrote the introduction in 96. Over the next few weeks, she had this terrible discharge of sort of, I guess, the residue of infection and medications. But at the time of writing, she was at university. And truly, I believe if aromatic medicine hadn't come into her life, would she still be alive?
Mm.
Because allopathic medicine had no answer. And I'm a
No,
believer in integrated medicine. I think we need the best of both worlds.
I agree.
But, open up your hearts and your minds, to plant medicine, which is so powerful, you
Mm.
know. So anyway, there you
I,
go.
I have
So I
to say,
think,
I have to say that uh, people who watch my channel will know that I've been through a few years of hell with my poor old husband having mouth cancer,
yes,
and we went from hospital to hospital because of cuts, and we ended up at Stoke Hospital, University of Northern Midlands, and they operate in this way that no amount of time is too much time. And I just walked in there and I just said, we're fixed. Before he'd had his operation, I know we're going to have to wait a long, long time for your operation, but it didn't matter how many questions you got, how long you needed to sit there. It didn't matter how many people you needed at your service, you were going to get it. And I do think that it makes such a difference that when the shift that the patient becomes the most important.
yes,
The
yeah,
two hospitals we went to first, we were just numbers. And, even the consultant didn't even look at Daryl when he was assessing him, didn't even look at him. And then we went to Stoke and suddenly he was center of the universe. And you feel it the second that the shift is phenomenal.
and it's going back to what Dr. Youngson said. Our compassionate caring is the most powerful thing to elicit the healing response. And even that nurse, oh my God, my brain. I don't know about you, my memories. I was going to say
Oh,
a bad word.
I'm surprised
Nightingale,
you even remembered
Florence.
to be here this morning. Who are you trying to think of?
It's so annoying. Florence Nightingale.
Oh,
She
her! I've
said,
already got there.
that's the one. Download. She said the cure is in the caring. And it's true, isn't it? If we like the way you looked after Daryl,
Daryl
Daryl.
too. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Like that would have helped his healing. Of course it would.
for sure.
And
And
yeah,
when he got ill, the first thing I said was, "I've got to give up work," and everybody was like, "Why have you got to give up work?" Well, because I can't have my attention in two places. This is too
yeah,
serious. And so I did. I shut everybody out except for my team. I called them my team of close people: Rhiannon, uh, Madeline, Helen Naglesmith, Debbie Atterby. That they were just here, and everybody else had to stay right out there because there were too many conversations to be had, that would distract me.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah. So no, I think we need to get back to that, giving people time, taking an interest in them, even if it's
Mm.
only 5 minutes. Well, like be genuinely interested in
Mm.
them. So yeah. But there's something else I was going to say and I've forgotten now. But
Well, I'm
there you go.
interested to ask you, what would you say then when somebody comes to you for a consultation, not a conversation, consultation? You've made this beautiful sacred space. You are going to give them, all of your attention, but we could have a million different conversations. So, what's the most important thing that you ask them to put them into the place to speak, would you say?
Well, I think there's a couple of things there. I pay a lot of attention to little details. Like I start preparing an hour before they arrive. making sure the room is warm, you know, the hot water bottles, you know, the towels around them, warm the carrier oil, pick the herbal tea, present it nicely, have a warm rug for the knees. So I've set the scene. And they're all very, very simple measures, but they're simple measures that carry the message of kindness. So straight away, honestly, when I give them a warm rug for the knee, you think I'd bloody given them $1,000. Like it's the most
Oh,
wonderful thing because it's a very comforting thing, you know.
mm.
So anyway, but then my client intake form, which actually is in the book, is very carefully structured so that I cover, like, obviously personal contacts and, you know, lifestyle, a quick medical history, you know, like diet, exercise, just all those questions. We only get to the nitty-gritty questions about mental, emotional health towards the end of that consultation, when hopefully we've built up trust and respect. And one of the most useful questions right at the end, I don't know if the readers can see, if the listeners can see
You
this,
see,
but
you can see, yeah.
it's a series of words describing emotions that we can all feel at any point in time. They're not right, they're not wrong. And that's the only thing they fill in. I ask them to circle the ones that have been predominant, say, over the past 6 months. And I tell them not to analyze them. If they jump out at them, circle them. And it doesn't matter how many or how few, and they can add their own. And honestly, Liz, that it always astounds me how, even though we've had this detailed conversation, the stuff that can come out, you know, just with that last question is amazing. And I think it's something to do with seeing the words written down that connects with the subconscious, because I've done it myself. And I've thought, why the hell did I circle that? And when I've thought about it, I've gone, oh, well, that was lurking in the depths, you know? So that to me, and then of course we explore, well, you know, what is it that makes you feel despair, or what gives you most joy, or, you know, what gives rise to your anxiety. And honestly, it is amazing that stuff can come out that actually hasn't appeared in the whole conversation. So that's really, really helpful for me, you know, and that's at the end where hopefully they're feeling relaxed and comfortable and they're trusting, you know. So we don't dive right in. It's, you know, we build up to, you know, get the sort of physical out of the way and what's their lifestyle like, you know, and just get all that out of the way. And then, you know, like I have questions like, how would you rate your self-esteem 1 to 10? How would you rate your confidence? What's your stress level? How would you rate your happiness level? Have you ever experienced depression? You get on, how are things with your family, with your job, with your partner? They're fairly direct, but I've never had anybody ever say, well, I'm not answering that, because, you know, because of setting the scene. I mean, if you pay a lot of attention to detail, it tells somebody, I care about you and I want you to be safe and happy and I want to do my best to help you, you know? So, and then, as I say, the conversation just flows through the sort of non-threatening to maybe a bit more challenging. But normally, in my experience, they're delighted to talk about their mental emotion, because where else do they get to do it, really? Unless they go
Well, I
to a
think,
psychologist or something.
oh, yes. And I think that in everyday life these days, we're often kind of told how we're supposed to feel. And there's a lot of judgment about feeling. And on one hand, you're told, oh, there's no stigmatism around mental health, but then also you're expected to live your life on screen as if you are a Facebook legend that has always, you know, this insta dream. Um, and you're not supposed to feel angry, and you're supposed to be able to forgive people and all of those things. So being quite often, I think, if you can read, I think this is one of the most powerful things about reading books, to see yourself reflected back on paper. Sometimes it's
Yes.
like you have this like this leap of consciousness into, oh my goodness, I'm not the only one, you know. um
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think yeah, I think it's interesting. Maybe even if you said the words out loud, it wouldn't have the same impact as actually seeing it on a piece of
yeah.
paper and going, oh, I can see
I've
myself
just
playing out there.
I've just realised my blooming battery is gonna conk out, Elizabeth.
Grant, well, that's right. Let's pause.
Yeah, I'll have to go and get my.
So do a big wave so I can see it. This is the bit I've got to cut out. There's a beautiful quote in the book that you have from Meister Eckhart. And he said, there's a place in the soul that neither time nor space or no created thing can touch. And then he said, meaning a place where we've never been wounded, where there is a sureness, a seamlessness, a confidence, and a tranquility. And I thought,
Yes,
that's so beautiful. His quote's so beautiful. Your quote's so beautiful. I'm in a beautiful, gushy place here now. And then I thought, but no,
but
I don't know what she means. So tell me about
well,
it. What
because
do you mean?
well, excuse me. To go back to Professor Lowen's quote about a human being being a mind, a soul, and a presence. John O'Donoghue talks about navigating towards that presence, that uniqueness of the human being. And to me, that's what the conversation, and the beauty and the safety and everything is about. It's to navigate towards the essence of that person. I think they talk about the essence as well as the presence. And it's a place, if you really get to the essence of a person, it seems to me that it's a place before they got sort of messed up by life. Like do you know what I mean? I don't know
You
if
do?
I'm explaining it very well, but it's like the essence, the goodness of that person. Because there is a goodness in people, but it gets, yeah, that's the only way I can talk about it really. It's finding that just the essence of that person, what makes them unique. And I don't, I suggest that we don't find that through a screen or getting someone to put words on a paper for a stranger that they don't know, whether they like you or respect you. But I think
I,
that's what they
I,
mean.
I think I know that you watched the Dr. Tara Swan the other day on Stephen Bartlett, and I think that she really touched on an essence that's important here about these different senses that we have, not just having five senses, but like the senses of intuition, or how the body knows its temperature and all of those things. But I think that when you're sitting in a room with somebody, you can read them very differently to how you can over the screen. And you're not just listening with your ears, are you? You're
Yeah.
listening with every fiber of your being, was a beautiful quote that you used. But
Mm,
that suddenly it's as much about their etheric field and
yeah.
the subtext that's going on, and that's very difficult to have over a screen, isn't it? That deep listening.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's almost getting to the purity of that person, you know? And yes, I don't think you can achieve it by getting people to fill in screens of paper. If I'm given, you know, a piece of paper to fill in, I'm not going to pour my heart and soul onto that piece of paper. I'll just tick, 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 because I want to know who is going to read this. Do I relate to them? Am I going to feel safe with them? So, um, yeah, but Thich Nhat Hanh, like that wonderful monk, he described deep listening as the kind of listening that can help relieve the suffering of another human being just by listening to them. And I think we've all experienced that, a problem shared is problem halved, you know. And also the wonderful Jewish thinker, Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks, he describes listening as one of the greatest gifts that we can give another human being. So it's not just me, you know, that is saying, I really want to have a conversation for the personal consultation, you know, and I want to spend time with this person. Well, I'm not the only one that believes that, you know, but I think we've lost it a bit.
Yeah, and to say the same thing as what you said, but in a different way. I think so many people feel like they go through their life and they're not heard, they're not seen, and just
Yes.
and especially, I mean, I don't know if this is just a UK thing. I doubt it is, but I think as you get older, you don't feel as important as you did, that people don't see you as much, you know. You're seen in a different way until you become invisible. And so for somebody to
Yes.
actually say, I see you and I hear you, that I'm sure that's quite shocking for a lot of people, and incredibly, like, this huge sense of relief that I've been waiting for that for so long.
Yeah, oh, definitely. I mean, I think everybody wants to be heard and everybody wants to be validated. I don't think there's anyone that would say, well, I don't care whether I'm heard or validated. I don't believe that. Everybody wants to feel loved and validated and heard, you know? And we have an opportunity to do that in the therapeutic encounter. I mean, we have a wonderful opportunity, you know. And I used to say to the students, you know, it's a privilege and it's a responsibility. So don't be rushing around, you know, like, you know, as if you're the greatest massage therapist in the world. Your focus should be on this person in front of you. Like, you leave your ego aside. It's about them, not about us, you know. We're simply conduits because, you know, the human body has an amazing ability to heal if we give it what it needs, you know. And I think part of that giving is honoring it and loving it and caring, you know. There's a wonderful line in that book, is it called Massage for Cancer Care, where I can't remember the author now, but one of the massage therapists that is interviewed says that when we touch another body, we touch everything that's ever happened to it, and we reach across the expanse of the human experience to touch their legend. Honestly, every time I say that,
Isn't
it
beautiful?
but therein lies the responsibility, Liz,
It's
because
right, yeah.
we don't know what we're going to unearth when we
Yeah.
actually do, you know, give the massage. Um, I mean, I've experienced it myself when I've had massage and thought, oh my God, like, where'd that come from? I'm going to cry, you know, when certain parts of the body would touch. And so it really is never forgetting that it's a privilege. Like, if somebody trusts us enough to come and seek help in some way, then I think, you know, we need to honor them as unique human beings by talking to them and giving them time. You know, that's
Mm.
how I feel anyway, you know.
I agree. I think it's really beautiful. And so I want to sign off in a little while, but I want to ask if there's anything else that you want to say about this book to people, because I definitely would like to say to people, please do read it, because think
Well,
you'll just.
shall I show? I'll show them a picture. Hang on. In case they haven't seen, this is a book, a little wee book, and it's available from Singing Dragon or Amazon or Blackwell's, or I don't get into the marketing. I hate marketing. But anyway, if you'd like the book, you'll find it at Singing Dragon. And and the other thing, which was very special to me, the person that did the illustrations for me is my beautiful Terry.
And so who is he? Is he your husband or your son?
He's my husband.
And when I looked, I thought, isn't that talented? Same name. That's got to be a family member. Yeah,
Yeah,
beautiful.
and
Really lovely.
I call him Ted, and the book is dedicated to him. I say for Ted, my Anam Cara, which means soul friend.
Soul friend.
And then another quote from John O'Donoghue. In this love, you are understood as you are without mask or pretension. And that's what he is to me. He just accepts me for who I am and vice versa. And I don't know, he's always got my back and he's my greatest supporter. So, but he did all the illustrations and they're beautiful. He is an artist and a musician. But so that was very special. And I felt that it gave another layer of authenticity to the book. It wasn't just a Shutterstock image. It was someone that actually sat down and drew those diagrams, And I think this first one called Anguish is really powerful.
It's beautiful. Yes, it is lovely.
I really do, because yeah. But anyway, there's about 10 that he did for me. So that was nice. That was special.
And what was your favourite thing about writing the book? Did you enjoy writing it? Did you find it difficult?
I was going to say finishing it.
That's always my answer. Or the worst thing is you finished it and then you go, oh no, now I've got to edit it.
I know. Yes. Well, someone else did that. I tell you, probably the worst part was keeping up with the references, because I didn't use one of these fancy apps that people use. It was cutting and pasting, and oh my God, like I had my list of references and then I had the book, and but anyway, I did enjoy writing. It was very satisfying. I was pleased that I was encouraged to write it, because I think, and it seems to be fairly, if I can use that word, on trend, because everywhere I look, people are using the word connection.
Yep.
And to me, the book is about connection to others, to the self, and to nature, because I touch on all of those. And I think, people are desperate for connection,
I do. And when I was writing the book, doing the research onto the Melissa priestesses, in ancient Greece, they had 140 religious days and 180 festival days. Now, so in effect, they were having like half of the year was parties but like communal. And that was needed because your average woman had no rights whatsoever. So she was locked away pretty much. But it was a chance to see her friends, her family, and what have you. And I felt overwhelmingly envious of this community of women that came together over and over again all of the time. And I thought, I feel like I've really had that robbed from me, this beautiful sort of collection of women that would just work together to make the earth fruitful. I thought, this is just such a beautiful thing, and we have lost it completely. And it made me very sad.
Yeah, I know. I think that's what those writers were talking about, the loss of that collective community, because we do live in our own little worlds, and, as you say, you have to make an appointment to see somebody and things like that. And it's, we're not met, we were hunter-gatherers. We lived in groups. And if you weren't with the group, if you were alone on the savannah, you were probably going to die.
For sure.
And I think that's connected to the loneliness that people feel now, because they're alone on the savannah, and so I think, I don't know, I find the world a little bit challenging, and with AI and everything, the problem I have is that I don't know what to believe anymore, because you read stuff on Facebook and I think, is that actually from that person, or is this
I don't
AI?
believe anything. I believe nothing on the internet anymore. No. And it makes me very sad. I'll see a picture and I'll think, well, shall I share that? Because somebody's going to go, it's AI. If I read something, I think I can hear ChatGPT in that. Yeah, did you? So have I got to go away and actually check every single thing that you've said to be able to share it? Actually, can't be bothered. I just don't believe anything. No.
I know. And I thank God, if you're teaching, How do you know that those assignments, like I think 95% of them are written by ChatGPT, aren't they? I read somewhere.
Who knows?
I mean,
Who knows?
I don't know. Yeah, I can see how it's very useful if you want to organize whatever, you know. But I can tell you now, there is not one skerrick of ChatGPT near my bloody book. It's all from here. And, you know, because I don't know, where's the personal voice going? I want someone's personal voice. I don't want a robot.
Yeah.
I can hear wailing from the hinterland disagreeing with me, but, you know, maybe I'm just old and maybe, you know, but I still,
I think that there is a world where both can exist. That,
yes, yeah.
and I have to say, I use so much AI. I do use so much AI, but I spend most of my time going back and checking AI all of the time, because I think it's a really important force that will become really important to aromatherapy. And if we ignore it, then our industry is going to be gone, because it just churns out such rubbish. So a lot of the work that I'm doing is about sort of curating information in a way that AI can read from it and learn from it. But I think, and if you don't embrace that, then you're working at a quarter of the speed of everybody else, is the other thing, because, you know, they can, AI can make you so much more productive and so much faster. But I agree with you. Why do we want to hear the voice of a robot? You know, we want to hear people's thoughts, don't we?
Well, I think particularly in the therapeutic encounter, I'd be very disappointed if people got a robot to choose the oils for that patient. Like, because where's the emotion and the mental? Like, I don't think you can do that. You know, it's that deep human connection, you know, what's going on for this person that I think, no, I couldn't use it in that situation, you know.
No, I think this is a really good place for us to end the interview on the hopeful note that there are still an army of us out there who want to have personal connection and to put our clients and our patients first. And so I want to say for a really deep thank you, Annie, A, for writing such a beautiful book that I shall be enjoying for months and months to come, but also for sharing with us today. It's really lovely to see you.
Oh, well, thank you, Elizabeth, for the invitation. It's so nice to meet you, as it were. You know, having used your cards and seen you so often interviewing other people. So it's really nice to connect, you know.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
yeah. And I'm so thrilled that Daryl is better
Yes,
because, you know, I
long way,
often
still a
sense
long
a
way to
little,
go, but he is, oh,
yeah,
so much
that's
better.
it. It's like a miracle, actually, isn't it? Because,
It definitely
yeah,
is. Yes,
which is
he was surrounded by angels for sure. Yeah, he
yeah,
was.
yes. So that's wonderful. And that's a very happy note to end on.
It is. Oh, thanks, Annie. Say bye-bye.
Well, bye. Thank you again. Okay. Bye.